What I cherish most is my family. I thought they felt the same way. That was until I inherited my father's estate. For better or worse, my life took a complete 180.
Can you stand in line at this store before it opens tomorrow and buy 10 of these for me?
My husband John, busy packing merchandise, makes a living by reselling items. He works at a small insurance company, but he missed the promotion wave and is nearing 40 with a salary equivalent to a new hire. I can't. I have a part-time job tomorrow morning. I hate to decline, but the extra income my husband earns makes a difference in our lives. I'm Katie. While being a mother of 2 kids, I also work part-time to help support our household. We struggle to make ends meet on my husband's salary alone, so I want to work full-time. But our youngest is still in preschool, so I'm planning to stick with part-time work for another year or 2. I work every day, save every penny. When you cut corners in life, it's like your spirit gets chipped away too. Oh, how I wish I could win the lottery or something. I've noticed that this thought crosses my mind more often than it should. I know a lot of people who talk about their husbands dying just for the insurance money, so I guess I'm doing all right, all things considered. My husband keeps saying things like,
"Maybe I should aim for fire so I can retire early and take it easy."
But honestly, he's all talk and shows no signs of actually making it happen. I'd like a little more breathing room in our current life, not just in retirement. Although I voiced my concerns, there's no solution in sight. For now, all I can do is focus on the work and parenting tasks at hand.
Oh, by the way, my dad and his friends are coming to stay this weekend.
Caught off guard, I took a hard look at my husband's face. This weekend? It's Thursday today. They're coming tomorrow? You should have told me sooner. My tone got harsh because I don't get along with my in-laws. I lost my mom when I was young, and my dad raised me on his own. My in-laws are all about appearances, and just because I didn't have both parents when we got married, they deemed me uneducated. I had my challenges growing up without siblings, but my dad was both loving and strict. Lately, he's been under the weather, probably from the strain of raising me single-handedly, and I worry about him. I visit my childhood home about once a month, but it seems neither my in-laws nor my husband are pleased with that. Whenever I go to my childhood home, I don't always take the kids with me. Last week, my mother-in-law Jennifer complained about this over the phone. Now my in-laws will be at our home for the next 3 days. Just thinking about it makes my stomach turn.
Sorry, I forgot to tell you, haha.
My husband says this casually. He won't lift a finger when his parents are here, and doesn't even bother spending time with them. I'm the one who has to handle the chores, take care of the kids, and entertain my in-laws as well. But like it or not, they're coming. The next day, I went to the airport to pick them up and brought them to our apartment. Still living in this place, I see. You should move to the town where we live. We could even start living together sooner if you want. I've heard this same spiel from my mother-in-law every time she visits. I deliberately live far away because I don't want to live with my in-laws. And for the record, it was your son who first decided to live in this area. I make these sarcastic remarks in my mind while making coffee and forcing a smile. In the in-law household, what my mother-in-law says goes, and my father-in-law just nods along in agreement. Since they arrive in the middle of a weekday, my husband and kids aren't around, and I become their sole target for criticism. By evening, when the kids return home, my in-laws switch gears. All of a sudden, they're the generous grandpa and grandma, willing to buy the kids anything they want. Oh, look how big you've gotten. Are you enjoying school? How about preschool? If there's anything you want, I'll buy it for you. They dote on my sons like this. While my son chats about school and keeps my in-laws entertained, I get started on preparing dinner, grateful for the small reprieve. Just as dinner was ready, my husband walked through the door. While we were all eating, my in-laws suddenly brought up the idea of living together. So, do you like staying at Grandma's house? You had fun during the summer vacation, didn't you? If you live with Grandma and Grandpa, we'll buy you whatever you want, and every day will be fun. Trying to get the kids on her side, my mother-in-law gets this fake smile from me in response. Jennifer, that's not a settled matter. If the kids take it seriously, it'll become a problem. Hearing that, my mother-in-law rolls her eyes and looks at me. Oh, so they shouldn't take it seriously. Some families with kids the same age as our grandchildren just moved into our neighborhood. It's lively and I'm envious. Even though she says that, it has nothing to do with us. Plus, if we lived together, I'd feel even more like a servant than I do now.
It's not a big deal. We might consider it eventually. But we like it here, so not just yet.
He sounds like he's gently pushing back, but that's definitely not the case. My husband seems gung-ho about living with his parents, completely ignoring my feelings on the matter. Why can't he be more assertive in declining his parents' request? He's really not reliable. Contrary to how I feel, he starts talking about finances.
I think life would be easier if we lived with my parents. If we moved, the kids would have to change schools, so it might be better while they're still young.
My in-laws were delighted and offered to help, but there's no way I can accept it. Once you take any financial aid from them, it's easy to imagine them reminding you about the favor every chance they get, even if you've paid them back. Also, right now we live about a 20-minute drive from my parents, but if we move in with my in-laws, that distance will increase and make it much harder for me to visit my own family. Avoiding a clear answer, I finish dinner. As the kids and my in-laws begin to take a bath together, I'm left with no moment to catch my breath, immediately starting on cleaning up after the meal. My husband is drinking beer and watching TV. How long will this kind of life continue? Both the money issues and the attitudes of my husband and in-laws weigh on me. If only we had enough money, we could live without these complicated ties. With these thoughts, I somehow managed to get through the 3-day stay with my in-laws and went back to my daily routine of childcare and part-time work. Then that day came. My father, William, passed away. His body has been weak due to a hard life when he was younger, and he quickly succumbed to pneumonia after catching a cold. He passed away shortly after being hospitalized, so I couldn't even visit him. I let my only parent die alone. Dad, I'm sorry. During the funeral, I couldn't help but apologize to my father over and over again in my mind as I cried. I can't help but think that if I had been more attentive, Dad might have gone to the hospital sooner. But what's the point of thinking about that now? The funeral is over and a few days have passed. I still haven't recovered from the grief of losing my father. It's then that my husband spoke these words.
It's been over a week since William passed away. Katie, you've got to pull yourself together. The kids are worried, you know? There's no point in staying down forever.
He's right. Staying downcast isn't good for the kids. I get it. But it's only been a week, you know? Just as I was thinking that, my husband dropped a bombshell.
Let's go on a trip with Mom and the others. It won't bring William back. Besides, you still have my dad. It's like you have an extra dad, so why the excessive grief, haha.
Pulled back to reality in the midst of my sadness, I retorted, "What the heck is that about, John? Would you say the same thing if one of your parents passed away?" Even as I responded emotionally, he just laughed it off with an expression as if it was no big deal.
Well, my parents are tough cookies, haha.
In that moment, I couldn't hide my astonishment at the fact that I'd been living with someone so emotionally tone-deaf as a family member. "I can't believe you. I want a divorce. A divorce." Even as I shouted that, the economic realities made divorce seem like a distant dream. And there's no way I'd hand my kids over to him. Knowing he has the upper hand, my husband just laughed it off. What was I thinking marrying someone like this? Why did I marry someone like this? After yet another moment of regret, I slept in a different room that night. We haven't spoken a word since I brought up divorce. Judging by the fact that he neither apologizes nor tries to make amends, he doesn't seem to be showing any remorse. Then one day, I learned for the first time that I was to inherit some land from my father's will. Land? I had never heard a word about this from my dad before he passed away. Thinking it must be some mistake, I checked multiple times with the lawyer who was holding my father's will, but it seemed that inheriting the land was confirmed. How had he been getting by with so little money? But the details remain a mystery. A few days later, after taking care of the inheritance paperwork, my still estranged husband spoke to me.
Tough day, huh? I'm sorry for what I said without thinking about your feelings, Katie. Let's forget about divorce, okay?
I can't forgive him yet for brushing off my father's death, but when it comes to divorce, issues like custody and living arrangements make me anxious. So I decided to revert to our old way of life for now. Yeah, maybe you're right, but it might take a bit for things to feel normal again. Still grappling with my father's passing, I decided to change the subject and told my husband about the land inheritance. That turned out to be a mistake. I may not know much about land, but I immediately noticed a change in his demeanor.
Really? William had land? I had no clue. So, how much is it worth?
As he asked, he kept stealing glances at me, gauging my reaction. I think it's about $50,000. I had a bad feeling, so I quickly lied about the amount. In reality, I have no idea how much the land is worth. I'm not interested in the land, so I just went through the formalities of the inheritance and came home. Hearing this, my husband, visibly excited, said,
Now we can make life easier for Dad and others. We could even live together and finally have some financial wiggle room.
I reiterated that I had no intention of living together with others, but my husband skipped off to the bedroom anyway. Feeling like I'd gotten myself into a complicated situation, I went to sleep without figuring out what to do with the inherited land. Early the next morning, I was woken up by loud doorbell ringing, and when I opened the door, there stood my father-in-law, David, and mother-in-law, Jennifer. David, Jennifer, what's the sudden visit about? Were you planning to come today? Still groggy and confused, I asked, only for Jennifer to assertively say, We're coming in. We have a favor to ask today, and marched right in. Still in shock, I see my husband, who's home because it's Sunday, waking up and exchanging glances with his parents. No sooner had they arrived than my mother-in-law, seated in the living room, offered a gift she'd brought, unusually so. I bought these muffins first thing in the morning. The cafe is so popular, it gets on TV all the time. I wanted Katie to try them, so I lined up before the shop opened to buy them. Hearing her talk so excitedly, I looked at my husband. He had the same expression he'd had last night after discussing the land. I see. Sure, if you suddenly get your hands on $50,000, you might want to start talking about living together at your in-laws. According to my husband and his parents, the plan is to sell the inherited land, turn it into cash, and then use that money to renovate their house so both families can live there. So that's the deal with the gift. But to think the only gift I get for $50,000 is a muffin? I felt underestimated. I began to think that maybe it would be better to find out the real value of the land. So while they were busy discussing their dream home, I decided to look up average land prices on my smartphone. I'd thrown out that $50,000 number arbitrarily. What if the actual value was much less? With that thought, I searched for land prices based on the area and size. Wait, $2.4 million? As unbelievable as it seemed, it looked like my father's land was worth much more than a mere $50,000. If this is true, firm in my resolve, I spat out, I have no intention of selling my father's land or agreeing to live with you. Stop making plans without consulting me. Then I left the house. There were things I wanted to confirm away from prying ears. I made several phone calls that day and timed my return for after my in-laws had gone home. For the next 2 weeks, I was quietly making preparations for a plan that no one noticed. Then came the day to put that plan into action. Uncharacteristically, I greeted my in-laws fully prepared. They arrived with gifts and started talking about their dreams for our new home. My husband joined in, so to stop him, I shoved divorce papers in his face.
Katie, stop kidding around. You're not seriously thinking of divorcing me, right? Haha, just to keep a $50,000 piece of land all to yourself? Even if we divorce, I won't give up custody.
Thinking I wouldn't go through with the divorce, my husband acted confident. That was until I pulled out my mobile phone and his face turned pale. I'm connected with your boss, Mr. Cooper, right now. You haven't been showing up for work lately, have you? You're too focused on buying up products for your side gig, neglecting your main job.
What? Mr. Cooper? This isn't what it looks like. John, I got concerned because you haven't shown up for work all week due to illness. So I contacted Katie and now I find out you're faking it. You're fired, effective immediately.
With that, my husband was sobbing, trying to explain himself to his boss. But the decision was final. He was fired. Seeing all this, my in-laws raised a fuss, calling me a terrible wife for entrapping their son. They insisted he should divorce me, so I succeeded in getting them to sign the divorce papers.
I don't want a divorce. Please forgive me.
My husband was crying and begging until the end, but it seemed he couldn't defy his mother's words. So I ended up in a custody battle, but with him being unemployed and neglectful towards childcare, there's no way he's winning custody. Things are going my way, just like I hoped. Oh, speaking of that land, my dad owned a piece of property in Manhattan. I found out it's worth quite a bit online and got in touch with a legal advisor who helped my dad with land matters. Turns out my dad had been using the property as a paid parking lot. The reason he had almost no liquid assets was because he was living off the income from the parking lot. Located in a busy area, the lot brings in more money than we were making combined. Right now, I've kept the parking lot running, and I've reduced my work hours to part-time. We're peacefully living in the family home I had left behind, just the kids and me. As for my ex-husband, he moves back with his parents after the divorce and job loss. Turns out he's in debt because his mom went on a spending spree, thinking she'd have access to my money. He also failed at reselling stuff and is stuck with excess inventory. And once they found out the land is worth more than $50,000, my ex and his parents came at me, all desperate for a reunion. I have no intention of dealing with them anymore. We're planning to move soon, keeping the kids' education in mind. The players may have changed, but family still means the world to me.